Huge show on the DNVR Broncos podcast. We are breaking down and unveiling our Broncos top 100 draft prospects, and we've got multiple draft experts on this show to break it down, and it all starts now. I'm back. The DNVR Broncos podcast is back. Henry Chisholm's back, and we've got a special guest, Andre Simone, joining us today. We've also got Dion behind the camera, and we've got our draft expert, Fran Duffy, because this show is all about the draft, and we get to talk about our top 100, which is really exciting. Looking forward to getting in that conversation. And before we do, got to welcome you in to the Toyota Lounge, driven by your local Front Range Toyota stores. Make sure to check them out if you need a Toyota. And let's just dive right in. And before we get into the top 100, we've got a couple of other pieces of news, and let's start with the draft news. Caleb Johnson, running back from Iowa.
Yes.
Taking an official visit with the Broncos today. Do we like this?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like, my official policy is you can't read too much into the visits because
I agree.
There's all sorts of weird stuff. But also Afton Chisholm the third, actually, from Eastern Washington, was there yesterday or the day before.
Wow.
That's the one I'm hyped about.
Wow.
Set Eastern Washington's all-time single-season receptions record.
Wow.
You guys thought Cooper Kupp was good.
Yeah.
That's his alma mater.
For real.
Yep.
Red Turf.
Yep.
Shout out Aunt Alima. Proud alumni.
3
Wow.
touchdowns on my Montana Grizzlies this year, which sucked. But yeah,
Dude.
these two guys, two of my guys, I love it.
Wow. Okay.
Incredible.
So we like it too?
Yeah, we like it. We like it. It's hard to gauge how essential that bruising first and second down back is, right? Mm-hmm. Because the running back in this system that's going to have all the special sauce, as the sirens are going off, hopefully the Germans aren't attacking.
Oh my
Hopefully not. Or anybody else for that matter.
No doubt, no doubt.
Just any attack. That'd be good.
The sirens have ended. But yeah, the sirens are going off in the Broncos front office for that Joker back, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Then the guy who complements the Joker back, the Mark Ingram to the Reggie Bush, who was, it's Deuce McAllister to
Yes.
Reggie Bush, and it's Mark Ingram to Alvin Kamara.
Yep.
Well, Bush and Kamara are the hard to find ones.
They are.
No disrespect to Deuce or Mark Ingram.
A little bit.
A little bit. But so how you go about finding those two basically starting running backs in the drafts going to be really interesting. Who do you prioritize? Caleb Johnson's great, has some Derrick Henry-esque vibes, though that's a comp we put out. Then you look at the measurements, he's actually 15 pounds lighter, which is what makes Henry such a freak, right?
Yep.
And the 4.57 40, which was disappointing.
Did come off just an insane season at Iowa. Very, very talented back, but not a Joker back. So how much will the Broncos really prioritize? I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And he's on our top 100.
Has to be.
We'll just have to see where he slots in. And one more thing before we dive into the top 100, we got some numbers news this morning, actually just a couple of minutes ago. And I've asked you guys to guess what number it is or what's the number news. And I'll say you guys haven't guessed it. In fact, you haven't even been close.
So it's not Matt Hawk.
Here, yeah, it's not
Again,
his
not
brother
to be confused
either.
with his brother Mike.
Right.
Just want to clear that up.
What's the full name?
His brother Mike Hawk.
You introduced the show with the "We're back, we're back, we're back."
Yeah.
That's the most famous Sam Ehlinger quote of all. Is after
Wow.
their bowl win at Texas against Georgia.
That's right.
He goes, "We're back,"
Wow.
and famously the next season the Longhorns shat the bed like no
Yeah, they
other.
did. Yeah,
So
they were
not back.
they were in fact not back, but he is not back, but he's here.
I wish I could say that I did that intentionally, but you're right. He is officially back with an NFL team, and that is what the Broncos. They
That's true.
officially made that signing official a minute before this show
Zach
started.
Wilson's number 2.
Zach Wilson. We don't know his number yet.
We don't?
Actually,
Okay,
no.
okay.
It is a number change. We have a player from the University of Oregon who was a rookie last year.
Oh.
Who is changing his number.
It's Troy Franklin.
Oh!
What
Or
if
is it Bo?
What if it's Bo?
No, it has to be
yeah,
Troy
yeah,
Franklin.
it's Good. That could be huge
What's
for
Troy going to?
He's going back to his college number, the number he wore when him and Bo tore it up.
Oh, God, I'm just drawing blanks left and right. This
Number
is terrible.
11. So we got
That's
Bo
sick.
wearing
That's a
10,
good
Troy
number
wearing
for him.
11, and I love it. I think
Yeah,
it's way
It's a
better.
fast number.
It's a fast
That's
number.
way better. Yeah.
Especially from 16 last year. 16,
No,
come
no.
on, quarterbacks were 16.
11 pops.
Yep.
11 pops.
So good news. Great way to
That
start
is-
the show.
Also,
That is
Dre,
great
the
news.
chat is talking about Lan Larison unprompted.
That's amazing.
That's our kind of guy.
That's amazing.
That's our kind of guy.
That's a Joker back.
That's
that is
Judson
a
right
Joker
there.
back. That is a Joker
From
back.
UC Davis, you know.
Yes, yes.
Another FC.
Oh.
So, yeah, the streets are talking. We are officially in draft season when the chat unprompted is
Yes.
talking about Lan
Lan
Larison.
Electric.
We should do a segment now in the lead up that's NFL draft prospect or character from Game of Thrones.
Oh, 100%.
Lan
Yeah.
Larison. I mean,
Lan Larison,
what a
yeah.
better way to start than Lan
Lan
Larison.
Larison.
I love that. And I love our top 100. We're going to have Fran joining us in just a couple of minutes.
Yes.
But let's start this conversation at the very tippy top. So do you guys want to explain what the top 100 is? Because it's the Broncos'
Yes.
top 100. So Henry, tell us what people should be viewing this lens of.
So basically, this is the top 100 players for the Broncos in order. Like who would be the best fits with the Broncos, who they should pick if they have the opportunity.
Broncos
And
have the number 1 pick in the draft.
Yep.
And they can't trade out of it.
Yep.
So who are they taking?
Who would
Yep,
they take?
yep.
And so Dre, our draft guy, for what, a decade now? You've put together a top 100 every single year.
Yep.
It's not Broncos specific. So then me and Dre took a couple hours a couple weeks ago and kind of went through and made all the tweaks to make it fit kind of the Broncos needs. You know, spoiler, not many quarterbacks on there because it just doesn't make much sense for the Broncos. Then Zach helped out once we got kind of down toward the final pieces. And then we came out with a top 100 that is all of our best prospects for the Broncos.
And so one of the cool things about this list is it, to my knowledge, is the only Broncos specific draft board that you are going to find outside of Dove Valley. The Broncos do this themselves. They don't do like a general who are the top 100 players. No, they order it for how it fits their board. And it's awesome to have the big mock drafts around the country, and it's fun to look at, but they're not Broncos specific, and they don't know the Broncos like we do. So this is very specific to the Broncos, and we're going to break down the list today. We're going to be referencing it over the next 3 weeks until the draft and then after the draft. But if you want to see it yourself, well, we've made it public for everyone, and this is a living list too.
Yes.
So
Yes.
things might change. Let's say, and I hope it doesn't happen, but an injury happens. I'll touch wood for that to a player. Thank you, Dre. There we go. We'll update it with that. And so maybe after this conversation, we'll be updating things as well. And we want to know your input as well. So if you go to thednvr.com, we've got it there. Click on it, and you can view this as well. And so why don't you just join us and open it up now and tell us what you like, don't like. But let's start at the very top, where at the top we had a little debate.
Yes.
And I want to see if I can change your guys' opinion.
Yeah, that's right.
Because at the top, you guys had Travis Hunter.
Yep.
Did you both agree on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Top player on our board, top player on Fran's board,
Yep.
and Zach. I think a guy who you put him in Sean Payton's hands as a playmaker, return ability, speed for days, instincts off the charts. That's why we think he would be number 1 on the Broncos board as well.
Okay, and I don't have much pushback, and I don't feel so strongly about this, but I do disagree. I'd put Ashton Jeanty at number 1 here for the Broncos. I'm not saying that that Ashton Jeanty is a better player than Travis Hunter. But you have to look at and maybe I'm looking too short term. And when I say short term, I mean the next 5 years, but that's a pretty, that's a pretty good stretch of time. I think Ashton Jeanty impacts this Broncos team and helps this team more this year, next year, the following year, for the first 5 years of his career, at least, because the Broncos have a massive hole at running back right now. And from what everyone has told me, is Ashton Jeanty, including both of you, is by far the best running back in this class.
Yes,
He's
sir.
definitely a top 5 player, if not a top 3 player. And so, again, I'm not saying that Jeanty is a better player than Travis Hunter, but for this Broncos team, Broncos don't have a big hole at cornerback. The Broncos have maybe a hole at wide receiver, and some people might say it's a big hole. Some other people, like Sean Payton, probably says, no, there's no hole there. But there's just no denying how big of a hole the Broncos have at running back. So I think that right now, he would just help the Broncos more. But we're just going to have to go with majority right here.
Do you think with the first overall pick,
Yeah.
in a scenario we can't actually see unfold, that they would take Ashton Jeanty over Travis Hunter and anyone else?
Yep, because
Because
Sean
of that
Payton,
need. Yeah.
And Sean Payton did this with Reggie Bush at
Yeah,
2 overall.
that's true.
And Reggie Bush might have been a more dynamic back, but Ashton Jeanty might be a more well-rounded running back.
Mm-hmm. My thing is just that, like with Travis, he is a real generational prospect. Like people say that all the time, but he is a real generational prospect. Like you look back at like Andrew Luck was obviously one of those.
The ability to play corner, I think also, like, I think he could be a phenomenal playmaker in Sean's offense, and then potentially like a really impactful second or third corner in sub packages. That's what I think puts him over the top.
Yeah. But then you look back and it's like, you just don't get guys who are this good of athletes very often. And when you get the chance, like you just can't pass up on it, I don't think. Even if Ashton Jeanty is also a really, really good player, because there are plenty of options in the second round and third round, fourth round for running backs. And that's why I think, to me, it's a pretty easy, like if Travis Hunter's on the board, here's another way I look at it.
Where you rank the running backs, because it's the one glaring need, was really the debate that colored our entire list, starting at 1 all the way down to basically 100, right? This was the kind of guiding light, is where does the rubber meet the road on, well, the value of this guy's higher, but the need for that guy's higher, right? And it's why this exercise is fun, because this is what you would call a vertical board. It makes sense for online content, as you will explain, Zach, how NFL teams are operating. It's the horizontal board. So quarterbacks, running backs, right? And so on and so forth. And they're first rounders, second rounders, right? Like a spreadsheet. So you're going to get in these scenarios where you're asking yourself, okay, 4 guys left with first round grades. One's a quarterback, forget him. One's a cornerback, forget him. The other one's a wide receiver, and we don't have a running back, right? The only running back we have is in that second round grade. And now it's quantifying, well, do you reach for that guy who's got a grade in the next round because it is a need, or do you go with one of the remaining first round graded guys? And we're trying to do that while stacking them in more of a vertical board.
Exactly. And that's what makes it so fun, is because it's a lot more difficult than I ever would have imagined. And so I'm happy that you guys did the heavy lifting with that.
It was a blast.
And let's talk to our guy, Fran Duffy. But before we do, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Coors Light, where this is the perfect thing to talk about with the Coors, is this top 100, because it's fun and you just want to chill when doing it. I mean, it's a great thing to do while chilling, and Coors Light is all about chilling. In fact, maybe we should open one of these for this show.
If our rankings upset you, choose chill and break open a silver ball. This is just guys talking ball, having fun here, you know? Choose chill.
In fact, you probably want to open the top 100 and have a Coors when you're doing it, because Coors is all about chilling. It's about chilling with your friends. It's about chilling with your family. It's about chilling outside in this weather that we're getting coming up. The 70s, and it's all about chilled because it's bottle chilled, it's brewed chilled, it's served chilled. Even the cans and bottles both turn blue when it's chilled to the perfect temperature. And you can have Coors delivered straight to you by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. We love Coors Light, especially this time of year when it's getting warm. And so go to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. You can find it pretty much anywhere as well. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
And shout out to Toyota. I was on Twitter this morning. I was just scrolling through, and somebody said something about like Australia is a great place to visit, especially if you like to drive. I was like, I haven't really thought about that because I've never rented a car before because I never have a need.
Are you 25 yet?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Well
so that's
past.
the age.
Well
is
past.
the issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I was thinking like, oh, maybe it would be fun. Like you rent a car for a week and then just like drive around somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which Toyota would be best for just driving around Australia?
A 4Runner. I mean, that's like
That probably is
Land
the
Cruiser.
one.
There's a lot of
RAV4.
terrain.
Those are perfect.
Yeah.
Those are
RAV4.
perfect.
There's a lot.
Find the next Jordan Mailata out there, you know? Like let's
Yeah.
maybe
Need a big car
Toyota
for
wants
him.
in on that.
Yeah.
We'll
Maybe.
pitch that content next draft season.
Maybe. If you guys want to check out any of these cars, you can visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. Auto Nation Toyota, Arapahoe and Centennial, Corwin Toyota and Boulder, Groove
Bring it
Toyota and
home,
Littleton,
Hank.
Mountain States Toyota and Denver, Stevenson Toyota East and Aurora, Stevenson Toyota West and Lakewood. Toyota, official automotive partner of the NFL, official vehicle of DNVR. Let's go places.
And let's go places like out to the hotline to bring in
man.
our franchise finder, Fran Duffy,
love it.
bringing us the great draft content every single day over at thednvr.com. And Fran, we are breaking down our Broncos 100 today, and the conversation started at the very top. And we had a little bit of a disagreement here. These two guys put Travis Hunter as number one on the Broncos top 100 board. I, however, with not too much pushback, because Travis Hunter's an incredible generational player, so I'm not knocking him by any means. But I would put Ashton Jeanty at number one because of how big of a hole the Broncos have at running back and how he's that not just 3-down back, but he's a joker. He's everything the Broncos need. Am I wrong, or do you see some truth to for Ashton Jeanty being number one?
I could see the argument for Jeanty going number one, but I will side with the gentlemen that are flanking you on both sides. To me, I would put Hunter as number one. I do think that he's a tier above Jeanty when you're talking about just the quality of player, certainly the impact that he can make at a more primary position. Whether you view him as a corner or as a receiver, or if you think he's both, I just think that Hunter brings that total package.
That's very fair.
I'm right there with you. We were curious today because Caleb Johnson posted that he has a top 30 visit with the Broncos. Also, there's some pushback on the phrase top 30 because it's not actually your top 30 players, which is interesting. I'm not sure if you have any big thoughts on that. But more importantly, Caleb Johnson in the Broncos facility, we're excited about it. Should we be excited about it?
Yeah, I think that my evaluation of Caleb Johnson, it was a little bit of a journey. You know, like when I first started watching him, I thought that he was more like early downs banger, probably more of a guy that you want someone side saddled with, right? Like a committee back. And then I watched more and I'm like, I could see him being like the feature guy for an offense. He certainly was that for Iowa a year ago. And then the more I watched again, I'm like, I think I'm more going back to my original feeling on him. I do think that this is a very talented player, primary zone runner. I think that you want to kind of keep him on a track. You let him go, perimeter runs, one cut and go, right? Like that to me, like that's the kind of system I think that he would excel in. I do think you can get a little bit of that here with Sean Payton and with the Denver Broncos, but to me, like I think that he's certainly missing like that joker quality, right? Like he's not a guy I think is going to bring you a ton of value from a pass game standpoint. I do think he fights the ball a little bit. My guess is you're probably looking at him round 3, round 4. And so if the Broncos miss out on certainly on the guys at the top, if they miss out on Marion Hampton, if you miss out on Travion Henderson by the time you get to the second round, I think that's when you start thinking about maybe a Caleb Johnson. As far as the 30 visit versus top 30 argument, I just think it's funny that people get so up in arms about the top 30 thing. It's typically when you talk to scouts, and former scouts that are in the media, it's like, it is not a top 30 visit. It's like, okay, yeah, we get it. But it's like, you get 30 visits. Every team gets 30 that you're able to try and bring in. So it's not the top 30 on the board. We understand that. I think everybody, for the most part, understands that these are not the top 30 players on every team's board when they bring them in.
Fran, toughest exercise in doing this top 100 was having in the back of my head Bill Parcells' disciple, like Belichick, Sean Payton is one, and building your roster inside out, right? You're in Philly, you work for PHLY. Few people know this better, seeing the work that Howie and his front office has done, building from the trenches on out. So because there's such a strong skill position need in Denver, right, we are naturally elevating these guys as we're stacking this vertical board. But I wanted to know from you, where's that breaking point where you start to say, no, a guy like Walter Nolan, who you have ranked 18th on your board, or a guy like Giad Campbell or Mikael Williams, who are 21st and 22nd on your board, are too good to pass up in favor of like an RB2, RB3, RB4 in this class, like the Ohio State guys, like Caleb Johnson, who we just talked about, like Omarion Hampton. When you're like, where do you start to see a real grade separation where it's like, I know they don't have a need at offensive center, which they kind of do, but Gray Zabel is too good to pass up on in favor of my 35th ranked prospect, who's Omarion Hampton, who's actually 25th, I should mention.
Yeah, Dre, it's a great question. I think when you're looking at this at this draft, and it's this case in any draft. That's why for me, when I put out my big board, I lean more heavily on the horizontal board. That is how teams operate 95% of the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going off the horizontal board, and that's why they say, all right, well, when grades are equal, it's not the identical grade. More often than not, it's not the identical grade. It's, do you have guys on the same tier in that horizontal board, right? So do you all have guys, and every team is different with, is it solid starter? Is it a number grade? Mm-hmm. Is it first round grade, second round grade, third round grade? Like there's all the different grading scales, but no matter what it is, you're using that horizontal board and are players on the same tier. And that's where things like need come into play. That's where things like positional value come into play. Right. And so, for me, when I look at the Denver Broncos, look, we know that Sean Payton, where he comes from under Bill Parcells, he wants to be a big physical football team. He said that when he first got brought into Denver. That's been something that he preached when he was down in New Orleans. They always addressed the line of scrimmage with early picks, quality picks when he was with the Saints, whether that was in the offensive line or whether it was the defensive line. And so I do think that is the way that this team is built. That said, obviously we know George Payton, he still has some say as well. Since George Payton has been hired, they took a running back, they took a guard, they took a tight end, they took a linebacker all on day 2. So I don't think that they're going to shy away from some of those, non-priority positions with early picks. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the horizontal board. And I think if things are even, I think that's when Sean Payton wins out and you go towards the line of scrimmage, right? And you're trying to continue to establish yourselves on the line, continue to win up front. That's where that's where Sean Payton knows you're going to build a championship level football team.
Fran, what's so fun about this top 100 is first we take a look at your 100 list and kind of build it from there. So it's great to get to know the guys that you like and maybe don't like as much. And then it's fun because you also get to dream a little bit. Like this is the only time really we're going to talk about, Travis Hunter being a Bronco. But then you get into also the cool part is you also get to see realistic picks for the Broncos. Broncos are going to end up with a couple of these guys. So I want to dream a little bit, realistic dream with you, Fran. Who is the best possible pick that could potentially fall to the Broncos? Because we obviously know Travis Hunter is not going to be there, so that dream is just way too big. Who would be the best pick for the Broncos that could possibly happen?
Yeah, it's funny. So I did that mock draft that I put up on DNVR last week, where it was the consensus, the aggregated mock draft, where basically I took the sample, and it's something I do throughout the course of the pre-draft cycle, starting as soon as the season ends, where, all right, all the notable analysts, all the notable NFL draft analysts. Let me just pull their mock draft in, and it's just a good way to kind of keep tabs on, all right, who are the players and positions that are being connected to teams most, and also you get a sense of the range of certain players, right? Yeah. So right now, this is what an article that went up last Thursday, and you can go and to me, like I'm looking at the Denver Broncos. Who are the players that got mocked most often to Denver? Colston Loveland is number one, 10 times out of 36 mock drafts. Ashton Jeanty 6 times. But who are the guys that's like, oh man, like that would be the best player available, the best possible player? The guy that where it happened 3 times, and it feels unlikely that he would last to 20 at this point, but it'd probably be Penn State tight end Tyler Warren. What would you need in order for that to happen? I think he would need to get past the Jets at 7. Like that's to me like the ceiling there. Yep. And then the other tipping point there would be the Indianapolis Colts at 14. Can you paint a picture where that happens? Sure. Is it likely? Probably not. So to answer your question, Zach, I think in terms of like who would the best possible player that would fall to the Denver Broncos be? My answer would probably be Tyler Warren.
Love that.
I'm happy you brought that up because I'm curious what you think of the Broncos tight ends right now. Because sometimes it's good to get an outside perspective. It's kind of tough when we go into the offseason saying like, okay, Broncos really need to hammer tight end. You go out, you get Evan Ingram, and then all of a sudden everybody else gets bumped down a spot. And I've got Adam Troutman as your number 2. You get the combination of Lucas Kroll and Nate Adkins behind him. All of a sudden it feels like a little bit more of a solid tight end room. Do you consider that a need? Do you think that adding a Colston Loveland makes sense, or Tyler Warren, or have the Broncos kind of solved that problem already?
Yeah, I think that, look, Evan Ingram is getting up a little bit up there in years. Mm-hmm. And look, the reason why they didn't sign him like, the sight unseen, like they brought him in on that visit, they brought him into the building for a reason. You don't necessarily see that with early in the process free agent signings these days in the NFL. Usually that stuff all gets done, over dinner at the combine, or if it gets done over the phone or gets done remotely. The fact that they brought him in, there's some cause for concern. How is his body? Where is he at physically? I think that when you're looking at, I don't know that, yes, if they line up tomorrow, Evan Ingram's your starting tight end, but are you going to count on that 2 or 3 years from now? Not necessarily. And I think that no matter what, this has been something that George Payton has hit on consistently over the course of his tenure, is that they're always going to try and trend towards best player available. Sean Payton said earlier this year, right as the season ended, like they split up their needs in the offseason to musts, needs, and wants. And obviously you get your must when you've got Evan Ingram. At the end of the day, like Tyler Warren is Tyler Warren, right? This is a guy that has the ability to impact the game in a number of different ways. That would be your long-term solution. When he was in New Orleans, they always had multiple guys in that room that had the ability to make an impact. Troutman was that guy early on, but they always had people in the pipeline. So while that would be surprising, like to me, I look at it as best player available. I think that would make some sense there for the Broncos.
Well, and we've talked about it. It might not be a positional need anymore, but it's an identity need, right? It's exactly the Parcellsian mentality we were talking about. You want to play physical? You want to be a big football team? Good luck. You're going to have your hands full with 2 tight end sets, and then you also need to defend and cover a guy like Cortland Sutton's, who's mammoth-sized as well. Switching from that topic, we've talked off air about guys that you're kind of outline or, circling as like Sean Payton guys, right? One guy we've talked about is Savion Williams, the big explosive wide receiver from TCU, who also took a bunch of carries from the backfield. Who are a couple other guys like Savion who maybe have that Joker mold, who we should keep an extra eye of attention to as Broncos fans in this lead up to the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I know, Dre, you and I, we talked about like Brashard Smith, the running back from SMU, who I know that they brought in. They talked to him at the combine. I think that would be a guy that certainly would fit that Joker mold. I'll tell you what, like when I was watching the college football playoffs, I remember I was actually sitting in the seat. I had the game on my screen over to the left, and I was just watching film. And Skattebo was going nuts in that playoff loss to Texas. And I remember like tweeting out like Sean Payton is watching this game. I'm pretty sure I like singled out Sean Payton. I was like, yeah, Sean Payton would love a Cam Skattebo in terms of like he can be that early downs banger, but what he can do in the pass game as well. I think that there would be a lot of love there. Terrence Ferguson, the tight end from Oregon, when going back to the tight end position, like, yeah, maybe you're not taking Tyler Warren in the first round. Maybe it's not Colston Loveland in the first round, but when you get to round 3, you get to round 4, Terrence Ferguson, a guy that's very familiar with Bo Nix. They've got a lot of Oregon connections in that building. They just hired the former Oregon strength coach to be one of of their assistant strength coach on that staff. A lot of inroads there. I think Terrence Ferguson would make a lot of sense. I know he was there for a 30 visit. He would be another one that would make sense. Savion Williams certainly makes sense. I think when you look at Jaden Higgins, the wide receiver from Iowa State, if let's say they don't get Tetairoa McMillan, he doesn't fall to them at 20. I know we've had that debate there. Well, if they still want to address their wide receiver position, Higgins is one of those like big oak trees that I think that Sean Payton loves being able to add to that wide receiver core. He would make some sense as well. I've got a bunch of names here, guys that I think would make a lot of sense there for the Denver Broncos.
Well, let's round it out here with the final question for you. Talking about a guy you mentioned, Cam Skattebo, what type of running back would he be for the Broncos? Is he a guy that you take as the second running back that you've drafted in a draft in like the 4th round and he's a complimentary piece? Is he a guy that you use a 3rd round pick on and he's the only running back or the first running back that you draft? Because I feel like there's so many differing opinions on him. Where do you stand with him?
Yeah, I really, really like Cam Skattebo. Right, like Zach, I really like him, and I have this conversation with our PHNX crew like on a weekly basis because Johnny Venerables is really trying to get me to like put him up there higher on the board. And Johnny asked me every week, Fran, what does Cam Skattebo need to run to be a 3rd round pick? And then I tell him, and then the next week he's like, Fran, what does Cam Skattebo need to run to be a 2nd round pick? And I'm like, all right, Johnny, let's calm down. It's right. He's probably a 3rd or 4th round pick at the end of the day. I think when you're looking at Cam Skattebo, it is going to be a beauty is in the eye of the beholder thing. And you don't want to rule him out because this is a guy that has maxed out. He's gotten everything out of his ability that he has gotten, right? I mean, to me, like when I look at him, I don't think like you kind of know what you're getting, right? Like, this is a guy that's going to be a downhill banger between the tackles. He's going to pick up 30 yardage. He could be moved around the formation. I think there are a lot of paths to success because we've seen him moved around. We've seen him run routes like a wide receiver. He's not going to be like what Rashard Smith is. He's not Alvin Kamara, like athletically, but in terms of like usage, like he's like the running back version of a Taysom Hill, right? And that's why when I see like a piece like that, a guy that can be used in a lot of different ways and just has that, because there's a level of like intelligence and football character that's required to be that kind of a movable piece. And Sean Payton has, shown the propensity to take those kinds of players in the past. And so to me, that's why when I was watching Skattebo, I said, yeah, like he would make a lot of sense for a coach like Sean Payton. It ultimately does come down to like, all right, we've had this conversation before. How do they feel about Audric Estime, right? What is the deal there? Do they think that he's going to be the running back 2? Is he like a 1A in a committee? Is he more of like a 3-4? Like how do they view him right now? That's going to determine how they approach the running back position in this draft. Are they drafting just one guy or is it multiple guys by the end of draft weekend?
Man, absolutely love it. Fran, you are the best. Thank you for your insight. We are getting so close to the draft. Looking forward to talking to you a couple more times before the big day.
Sounds good, guys. We'll talk next week.
Man, love it.
Thanks,
Thank you, Fran. Shout out to our guy, Fran. Let's continue to break down our Broncos top 100. But did you guys hear that little jingle? Because I think it's from our friends over at Empire Today.
Nice.
And over at Empire Today, you always got to have that home floor advantage. We know in Denver, that's big for all of our teams. And you got to make sure that you have that for your house. And there's no better way than checking out our friends over at Empire Today, where I'll tell you what, there's some big box stores where they're big box and they're just not going to do things the right way. They will never get that over at Empire Today. Over at Empire Today, they are going to give you personalized care, which is just so key. Empire Today lives and breathes flooring. They don't do everything. They just do flooring, and they'll be with you the whole step of the way. It's a game changer. And if you pick the right floor, you can pick the right colors because you can see how it all lines up in your house before getting it done. They have precise measurements that are taken. They have all of your questions answered, so there's no surprises. And if you use the code DNVR over at Empire Today, you are going to get $350 discount when using that code DNVR. That's right, $350 discount when you use the code DNVR. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/DNVR for full details.
And shout out to Volo. Volo is Denver's most popular provider of adult social sports leagues, pickup games, and events. Just today, if you were a part of Volo, you could go play pickleball, volleyball, dodgeball. Actually, there's a whole bunch of different volleyball games.
All the balls, huh?
Yeah, basically any ball you can think of.
Dang, football?
Soccer.
Ball, yeah.
Soccer ball, yeah. Dodgeball, soccer, all balls. Oh, softball also. A lot of different balls.
course, yeah.
And those are
Crazy.
just the pickup games that are happening this afternoon or tonight. They've got all sorts of different sports. They've got all sorts of different leagues. You can play in Lodo, Rhino, the Highlands, City Park, Cherry Creek, South Broadway. It's a great way to meet people, make friends, be social. You can stay or get more active in a fun way. You can mix up your after-work routine. And players can sign up as a free agent, a small group, or a full team, and all ability levels and backgrounds are welcome to join. Use code DNVR10 for $10 off any Volo Denver league.
Okay, and so like I said, this Broncos 100 is a lot. There's 100 players on here. We're not going to be able to get through all of them in depth on here. So go to thednvr.com, become a diehard, and then you can look at this list in detail all yourself. And speaking of, shout out to everyone that's tuning in. A lot of fun comments today. Hit us with a thumbs up. We really appreciate every single one of you who's tuning in with us. And let's dive back into the Broncos 100 here. So where do you go after? Well, really quick, do you guys, would you put Jeanty at 2? I know that's what we have on the top 100.
1,000%.
Yep.
Okay.
For a second, it's exactly what I told
Yep.
Fran. I had this feeling like, man, gun to his head, I almost wonder if Sean would take Mason Graham, the big defensive tackle from Michigan.
That's fair.
If he had like the second pick and couldn't trade out of it. Because building from the trenches, because like pressure up the middle, just going up against Mahomes. Like you saw what the Eagles just did to him, right?
Yeah.
And then we talked it out, and like, I think Ashton Jeanty is a Bijan, Zeke Elliott, elite type running back. I think Mason Graham is super talent. I think he's more Quinnen Williams of the Jets than he is Jalen Carter, for example, right?
Yep.
Like so there's levels to this shit, like someone famously said, and that's where, like, again, in a horizontal board, he's like one of 3 players I've got with the super duper special grade.
Yeah.
And Graham's just a smidge below.
Yep.
So because of the need, we gave the advantage to Jeanty on that.
Yeah, and obviously you don't want to draft for need, and that's why what the Broncos did at safety, inside linebacker, and tight end is great. They don't have those needs.
Yeah.
There's still one need. There's only one need, but there's still that one need, and it is at running back right there.
And again, if it was a typical running back class and you didn't have a Jeanty, like the top running back was projected to go late first, early second,
Right.
we would not be doing this,
Right.
right? It is that Jeanty is such a special prospect at that position of need that's where that comes into the conversation.
And then again, the reason why to me he's second, not first, is just because there's another half dozen or dozen guys who probably are starters in the NFL. So it isn't just like it's Jeanty or bust. It's Jeanty or, like, you know, you take him out of this class. I think you take him out of this class, Hampton out of this class, and Judkins out of this class, and it's still much better than last year's class.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. Now, at 4, we have Abdul Carter. And the interesting thing is, being on this show typically every day with Henry and Ryan, they don't necessarily, I don't want to speak out of turn, but it doesn't feel like you guys think he's as good as other people believe. Dre, do you sit there? Or is he special, or like special? Or should he maybe not be in the top 4 of our Broncos top 100?
He's super duper special. As a pass rusher, as an athlete, and as the fact that he can play off-ball linebacker as well, and that athleticism really translates in those areas. I think with a little refinement as a pass rusher, this guy checks all the other boxes off emphatically to where this is a profile I would bet on and bet on highly, and it would pay off because of the positional value as well. Now, undersized edge rushers were hard for me to rank.
Yeah.
Because you've got one in Benito. I don't think you need more.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think there's a reason you traded away Baron Browning.
Yeah.
I think there's a reason that Drew Sanders may be having some trouble finding a little traction in the starting lineup. So I think edge rusher could be in play, but it's more the Cooper JFM profile of edge rusher.
Right.
It's not the Nick. We're not trying to double up on Nick Benitos.
Right.
So everything I said about Abdul Carter, true. For the Broncos, though, I really don't see a ton of a need. Now, could he be a super duper upgrade on Alex Singleton? Yeah, I think he could.
Yeah.
Inside.
Yeah.
Wow.
You could. Again, it'd be probably wasted. It's like the Micah Parsons conversation.
Yeah.
Or it's like you just really can't justify it when you can put him on the edge and get so many sacks. For the Broncos, though, like that might be the easiest way to get
could
him
he
on the
play
field.
their first 2 downs and then third down,
Yeah.
boom, he's playing opposite Nick,
Totally.
and good luck. Like, time to get after Mahomes.
Totally. I mean, he is a really good prospect. Like he should be a top 5 pick. It's there's just one more level to it. I think maybe it's just the size where just, a little bit more before you can start comparing him to like Chase Young didn't pan out, but that just like a monster prospect, Von Miller
what
at
is
the
his
time,
size?
monster prospect. 6'3",
59 he's listed.
259 is what he's listed. That
So,
actually
I
is
mean,
kinda crazy.
pretty big.
That is big.
For a guy that
250.
moves like, and what's crazy
Yep.
is he wears the same number as Micah Parsons did.
Yeah,
And I mean, a lot of the time it was like
Totally.
this guy's literally a clone.
totally.
Yeah.
So he's super talented. Super talented.
So what's crazy about this top 100 and the way you guys drew it up, we've just talked about the top 4, Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty, Mason Graham, and Abdul Carter. Tell me if I'm wrong in saying I think all of those guys are unfortunately unrealistic for the Broncos. I think the comments yesterday from the Raiders GM all but said we are drafting Ashton Jeanty at 6. Did you guys hear what he said?
I don't know.
He said, this isn't word for word, but he said his kid tells him every day that they have to draft Ashton Jeanty, and if they don't, he's walking out and finding a new family.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like, it just makes so much sense that Ashton Jeanty is their pick, and they pick at 6. And if he falls after that, then I still think he's going to be drafted by someone else. So I don't see any of these guys being available for the Broncos at 20. However,
100%.
after the top 4, we're going to talk about some of these guys. And
We
as
went
Fran
off the
just
board
mentioned-
a little, yeah.
Yeah, and some of these guys could fall. We could be talking about the guy that's 5th on the Broncos list, making it to them at 20,
Yeah.
and them getting legitimately a top 5 talent on their board, because I'm just going to read off the top 10, and you guys can react to it. We had Tetairoa McMillan at 5, Tyler Warren at 6, Egbuka at 7, Loveland at 8, Matthew Golden at 9, and Travion Henderson at 10 to round it out. It's not crazy that some or all, maybe it's crazy that all of those guys fall, but it's not crazy. You can make a case for each one of them potentially falling.
And I would say 3 of those guys, at least, I would expect to be there around pick 20.
Who?
Travion Henderson, I think there's
Yep.
a very good chance.
Yep.
Egbuka, I think there's a very good chance.
Yep.
And I think Loveland, Golden are both like 50-50 propositions.
Yep.
And I think, T-Mac, Tetairoa McMillan's become like a 40-60 type proposition.
Yeah.
Like, I still think it's more likely he's gone, but I don't think it's like, I think Bet365 has his over-under set at 19.5. So, I mean, right there,
Wow. What, that's exactly 40-60
Right
then.
there.
Yeah, maybe even 50-50.
Yeah. Yeah, I struggle with the order of those 3 receivers. To me, it's kind of those 3 and then everybody else. I think I like the order we came out with McMillan, then Egbuka, then Golden. But
That shocks me. I would have guessed you would have gone Golden 1.
I mean, McMillan has been the best receiver in this class for a while.
Yeah,
Other than
that's true.
obviously
and-
Travis is a clear number 1.
Hank, I
Right,
keep coming back to a convo we had maybe 2 months ago now on the draft pod.
Oh, okay.
Where you're like describing the ideal wide receiver
Totally.
for the Sean Payton offense. The ideal X was what the conversation was. I mean, he described T-Mac.
100%.
Like he described T-Mac, and
Yep,
it's basically
yeah. Such a good point.
In some ways, I'm almost thinking of the wide receivers for the Broncos. It's like T-Mac and the other guys like T-Mac,
Yeah.
which is like Trey Harris is next. Torrey Horton,
Yep.
I think, ranks really highly for the Broncos
Yeah.
because he does like check off all those boxes. You want a bigger guy, you want a guy with a nice combo of hands and speeds and route running, and that's what these bigger dudes offer.
Totally. I mean, he's just a freak. Like, you just don't find athletes that are built like him very often. Like, he's just so unique in that way that he's worth the bet. Like, if one of these guys goes on to be like a all-pro type player, you would think McMillan has the best chance just because, again, it's such a unique skill set, such again, it's like 6'4", bigger than 6'4", massive, like the catch radius. But then the other two with Egbuka and Golden, I might go Golden in front of Egbuka. The slot ability is special, like the separation, the route running, the quick feet. Egbuka, though, again, like he's in that Justin Jefferson mold where it's like maybe he doesn't tick the elite speed box, maybe he doesn't tick the elite size box, but he's so fluid and he catches everything and he's a proven producer. And it's like, are you overthinking Egbuka and kind of falling for, I don't want to say Matthew Golden's gimmicky, but there's just a little bit more flash there than there is with Egbuka. And in the long run, that doesn't necessarily always pan out.
Man, and T-Mac, that is Michael Thomas in terms of just like Sean is going to use him differently than other teams would use him, and Sean knows how to get the most out of him. And Sean also believes that he can make receivers much better than they are, meaning he knows he can't get a 5'10 receiver and make him 6'5". So give him the 6'5 guy, something that he can't control, the height, weight, the physical specimen, and then he's going to be able to put him in the exact position that he thinks will succeed.
Does it worry you that he said he doesn't watch film because the coaches watch the film and break it down with the team?
Yeah,
does that concern you, Zach?
There are a couple of those where it's like, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very
only
concerning.
like 21 though.
Now,
like,
only
don't
21,
care.
and maybe
Yeah.
you know, if
He's a receiver.
If he's also saying like I will not watch film, as opposed to like his coaches weren't really asking him to do it because they told him he was going to get everything in the meetings. Like, okay, he just needs to be coached up as a person, how to be a professional. That's okay. But if his mindset is like, nope, never going to watch film, that's concerning.
100%.
I think what scares me is if he falls to 20, maybe the simplest reason probably would be because teams said like, yeah, not sure if that's exactly the person we want to be betting.
You have a West Coast scout who's been getting intel from Arizona for 3 years now. He's the only guy who has back-to-back like superstar production seasons, which should probably matter more than a stupid comment on a YouTube video.
Probably.
His coach leaves after a phenomenal season for Washington. He doesn't follow him. He stays committed to the Wildcats. Showed a really good attitude and star production throughout a very tough season for that offense that underperformed drastically. So I think, character can't be evaluated from a 10-second snippet. This is a $1 billion industry we're talking about, and there's like
they've talked to every one of his
intel
ex-girlfriends.
being
They've done, they know all the details
also,
there.
I know you don't feel this way, but going back to the Golden conversation, part of me does feel like the old meme, like, no, we have Matthew Golden at home. And that being Marvin Mims, right? And I know you don't agree with that, but I think, as I was saying, there's the Tet McMillan wide receiver type that I'm like, yeah, they could use that. That's a Sean wide receiver. And then there's these other guys who I really like, who I think could be really intriguing, have yak ability to fit a lot of what Sean does like in wide receivers. But I'm like, I don't know. Do you really need that with Mims and Troy Franklin?
My thing with Golden is that like his speed is like the third thing that stands out to me. Whereas with Marvin, like that was number one. Like Mims' speed, the downfield, the playmaking stuff. For Golden, number one to me is the route running. Like he just gets open automatically underneath and he's so sharp. And that's just something Marvin didn't have. Then after that, it's the contested catch ability and the catch and run ability, just the smoothness that he plays with. Again, like Marvin has some of that, but there's a little bit of a difference. And this is, I've mentioned yesterday, I have the weird comp in my mind. Matthew Golden kind of reminds me of Ladd McConkey. Like if I was picking a guy from last year and going back and watching, it's more like Chargers Ladd McConkey because he was doing some different stuff. But you see some of those like double moves and the way that just the feel for creating space, pressing a corner outside and breaking back in, the smoothness with they catch it. And I would honestly say McConkey is better running after the catch than Golden is. Like he has more of those instincts and like changing. But
McConkey
Golden
more
just
of
has
a
that
pure
pure
slot
speed.
though, right?
More so, but again,
I did think Sean's comments about the triangle were interesting and how running back, tight end, and slot wide receiver need to be more support. And like, who would you even say the Broncos slot is going into the season right now?
I don't know.
Devon Vele.
Probably.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like Vele Ingram.
Yeah.
Like, that ain't a slot wide receiver,
Right?
kids. I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly.
But if you go back to Georgia, McConkey was playing mostly outside. Like
Sure.
there is. I think that's more the comp. And again, it's another guy who like maybe ran a little bit faster than you expected. Again, 4.38 versus 4.29 is different. But I think I see more different. I see more Mims and Luther Burden. again, who's more that catch and run. And again, like Burden's bigger, has maybe Debo's a better comp, but more so it's like halfway between Debo and Mims. And I have him a little bit lower than those other guys, but I think there's room for Golden in this group.
Well, send in your submissions to the Nobel Committee because that's a cross-racial comp that
is rare.
is worthy of an award nomination.
Don't see that very often.
DNVR Broncos.
Usually when you're working on cross-racial, see other
that
way
was
too.
that was great stuff. Great work by Henry.
So, guys, I have to ask you about a guy that we have not talked about a lot, but he sits on 12 on our board, and there's a belief that he's just going to be gone. But what if Will Johnson does fall to 20? This is a guy that I feel like 3 months ago was almost a consensus top 5 player in this draft.
That like Mason Graham tier, right?
100%. Is it because they both went to Michigan?
Well,
I mean,
he's right there.
Yeah.
It's like Abdul Carter, Mason Graham,
Right.
Will Johnson
Yeah.
were like the elite defenders.
And I feel like he has really fallen off, not to the Luther Burden type of fall off, but like, what if he slips to 20 right there? We talk about, what Pat Surtain and Travis Hunter would be like there. Well, Travis Hunter is not realistic that he's going to fall. Do you take Will Johnson, and which might be the biggest luxury in this draft in terms of the Broncos, move Riley Moss in the slot? Some people have some questions about Jaquan McMillan. I still think he's really good and want him, but you move Riley in, and then you have 2 number ones on the outside and a number 1 slot also on the inside. Is that too much of a luxury, or do you really think about it?
That's how you got a Super Bowl.
That's a good point.
I mean, you know, Eagles with Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, that seemed to be a really important pairing of young cornerbacks for them. And then you'd be set for years to come, you know? And we kind of saw Sean do this with Lattimore and guys like that, like really try to double up on corners. Honestly, the joke for me on the draft pod for years, especially when George was kind of doing this on his own, was that George Payton was addicted to drafting DBs. Like he couldn't live life without it. And so, if Will Johnson drops and is staring him in the face, I think that could be very tempting. And I mean, Siobhan Ravel, who Fran has rated very highly too, like those are really interesting conversations, especially if Loveland's gone, Golden's gone, Egbuka's gone, T-Mac's gone, Warren's gone. And it really is like Will Johnson, Travion Henderson.
Yeah. And
Will
honestly,
Johnson, O'Marion Hampton, you know? And it's like, when you could, maybe Brashard Smith or Quinshon Judkins or Caleb Johnson are all available at 51.
And these were the guys who were really tough to place because you're just like, at what point does the rubber hit the road? And you say like, we can either get this true blue chip prospect who we think is going to be a minimum Pro Bowl or all pro type, or a guy like, he's right behind Luther Burden, who's a guy who I think is like starting NFL receiver, maybe doesn't have like that sort of potential. If anything, I might move him up a little bit.
I would
going
too.
back and looking.
I would
like,
too.
If it's Luther Burden or Will Johnson on the board, I think I go Will Johnson.
I would too.
If it's Will Johnson, Travion Henderson, I think I go Will Johnson there too. And that's where I go. Golden is probably the cutoff.
Remember the combo we had with Henderson.
True.
Henderson,
Totally.
Brashard Smith, Savion Williams, a couple of the guys Fran mentioned that are like specific to, you imagine them in Denver, and it's specific to what we were talking about right off the top of the show. There's the meat and potatoes running backs, and there's the Joker special sauce running backs. And I think you kind of prioritize the special sauce guys for this offense more than you would just about any other. And that's where guys like Henderson, guys like Brashard Smith, guys like Bashal Tootin stand out above the rest. So we kind of have those guys elevated on this Broncos top 100. So Henderson versus Will Johnson, I think, is a very interesting conversation. And I would push back and say I stand by how we ranked him, because Henderson is such a like Kamara clone. You know what I mean?
And just perfect.
And I mean, it's been years since I've been throwing out a Kamara clone comp. Like those
So
guys
true.
aren't just popping up every season. And isn't that what Sean was saying? Like, jokers aren't easy to find.
Yep.
It's not just one every year available.
Exactly. And one of the things that Sean also said this Monday when talking to him is he said he's not worried about size when it comes to a running back. So you look at Travion Henderson.
Wow.
He's 5'10", 202 pounds, and I believe he likes the way he's built, because he said, like, I'm not worried about height and weight. I'm worried about how long your legs are and how you're thick in the right places in certain parts of your body. And I think Travion Henderson looks like that, at least from what I can see on tape. He looks like he is built like he can be a 3-down back. Plus, he's got that special sauce. So, yeah, I'd probably keep Henderson there at 10.
And pass pro ability.
Like,
this guy's a hardcore
Did we just
football
live
dude.
move Will Johnson above Luther Burden?
We sure did, guys.
Let's
we sure
go.
did.
Let's
You
go.
said
See,
it, and I listened. That's right.
That is how this board is just going to keep
damn
moving
straight.
around. I'm going to move Ashton Jeanty to 1 after this. No, I'm kidding.
Do
I
it,
won't.
do it. You
No, I'm
can-
not going to
you
do
can roll
that.
out.
But, and then also, I mean, to your point about how specialized this list is, would you guys say most people in the nation will put O'Marion Hampton as the number 2 running back on their boards ahead of
Probably.
Travion Henderson? I would think so. Not with our list, because this is, like you said, Alvin Kamara, Sean Payton. So that's why Travion Henderson is 10. That's why O'Marion Hampton is 15. And then I got to ask you guys about this, because now you have Quinshawn Judkins being 16, right behind O'Marion Hampton. How close are these guys for you? Is it really just like neck and neck?
I think they're closer to Dre than for me.
Okay.
I think this is kind of where we fell.
You're like the
I like Judkins
world's
too.
most renowned O'Marion Hampton hater.
You're
Like, how
the
can we
renowned
even-
Judkins lover, which is why we wound up with them right here.
That's very fair.
Yeah.
No, I mean, similarly sized. Both are the only 220-pound backs to run in the 4.4s at the combine. Many would have guessed it was Caleb Johnson and those guys. Nope.
Yeah.
And Hampton, such a well-rounded skill set, checks off like every box. My comp for him is Joe Mixon. What's cool about Judkins is at Ohio State, he came in as kind of the meat and potatoes back for Travion Henderson. But you go back to how Lane Kiffin was using him at Ole Miss before transferring to the Buckeyes. He was much more of that O'Marion Hampton jack of all trades, checks off all the boxes. And he's got that size, and he's got that 40.
Yeah.
To me, they are pretty neck and neck. And what Judkins may lack in production, he makes up for with fresher legs.
Yeah,
Both fairly young. So
totally. I mean,
to me, they are neck and neck. And I think 8, maybe not a tier, but like a half-round grade above Caleb Johnson and the next group of running backs.
yeah, and that's probably right. There is a real part of me that, again, going back and looking at it with fresh eyes, it's been a week since we went through.
Yeah.
I almost think that they should be lower too. Yeah, like I think
4 backs in the top 16 does seem aggressive.
it does, and I get that there's a need.
It makes
But
sense.
also it's just like
100%, it makes sense.
Using that first round pick, again, just knowing the way this draft is going to play out with all these running backs in second and third round, like I just don't know that I could actually pass on Walter Nolan, knowing that, O'Marion Hampton's great, but in the next round, this guy, whoever's going to be there is going to be there. Like,
Well, I know.
Derek Harmon's another one of those. Like,
But then we're
It's really
talking
tough.
about dropping them 20 spots. Like,
Yeah.
because you get to the 34, Gray Zabel, Kelvin Banks, like the top O lineman. Are we sure that,
Yeah.
then you get into the top safeties, the top nickel backs, like until you get to 37, where we have the next tier of tight ends. It was really hard. Like, it's the skill positions above everything else. But then there's like a big tier of guys in there that are at less needy positions, who I think are very really talented and hard to pass up on.
totally.
I love looking at this board, and that's why I recommend everyone go to thednvr.com, because we're going to continue to break it down on future shows leading up to the draft. But Caleb Johnson, who's in for a Broncos visit, he's at 49, a guy above him, and I absolutely love that you guys put him at 46. Brashard Smith, he is like the ultimate joker in Sean Payton's offense. And you have Torrey Horton at 50, who, man, I think would be such a good, he's not just a great player, he's to be such a good fit with Sean Payton. Linebacker Carson Schweschinger out of UCLA. The Broncos are at his pro day today as we speak. He's there
crazy.
at 55. Terrence Ferguson, obviously connection with Bo Nix. He's in there in the top 60 as well. And you just get, it's so much fun to look at this and just see what we're thinking the Broncos will do. And then one I got to throw out here.
Do it.
Our 100th player. I believe he's the only quarterback in the top 100.
Damn straight.
And that is Jalen Milroe. And I love this. You guys were already going to do it. I pushed for it to make sure it happened, because if you talk about just like a weapon for Sean Payton, it's Jalen Milroe on the offensive side of the ball as just like a very uncharacteristic guy that you bring in.
No doubt.
So I love Jalen being there.
I mean, he'd be perfect for Sean. He'd be just perfect as a weapon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be so exciting to have him in there.
I think
Man.
like basically the exact same measurements as Taysom Hill. Like both 6'2". I think Taysom Hill had 4 pounds on him. But
Crazy.
I mean, that's what you're looking at. And again, like
He's faster than Taysom Hill, I can tell you that much.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
so
certainly
freaking fast.
faster.
Really quick, we're going to continue this conversation and wrap it up over at thednvr.com. So make sure to join us in overtime for this conversation. So
Yeah.
sorry, Henry.
and realistically, like if
He's
the
gone
Broncos have
before
the
100th
totally,
pick.
and even if you have the 100th pick and those 99 are off the board, he might be more like 115, 125 ish. But for the sake of conversation, I love that we put him in here because he would be a weapon.
Let's say you go, man, I don't even know what you do. You go running back in one of the first 2 picks, and then with your second pick, you go with a defensive player. And if Jalen Milroe's still there in the 3rd, I mean, isn't it worth just taking the gamble? And not even for what he could be at quarterback, but what he could be in Sean Payton's offense. I wouldn't be arguing this if the Broncos offensive coordinator was Bill Musgrave, because I would
100%.
just be like, what are we doing here? But because it's Sean Payton, I would definitely take that gamble. But like I think both of you guys said, the Steelers are having a lot of rumors that he's going to be their pick at 21. Even if he's not a first-round pick, I definitely think he's going the second round. I think he's going to be a guy that a team trades up for. I think just like the Philadelphia Eagles did to get Jalen Hurts, I think that's what will happen with Jalen Milroe. So I don't think this is realistic. I don't think it's going to happen. But if he's there in the 3rd round, I'm all for it, and I think Sean would be too.
Yeah, even the 3rd might be a smidge too rich. Like maybe it's more like a Malik Willis type drop to the 4th.
Yeah.
But I mean, the path would be like, remember when the Eagles drafted Kevin Cobb and then flipped him 2 years later?
Yeah.
This was under Andy Reid, I
Yep,
believe,
it
for
was.
like a 2nd rounder.
Yep.
That's what you'd be doing with Milroe, basically.
Yeah, it's really true.
Wouldn't be the worst.
Man, what a fun conversation, Dre. If you're down for it, we might have to have you back next week to continue to break this down.
Any time, fellas. I had an absolute blast.
Hey.
Love doing this. Love, you guys want to hate on us for the top 100, send it my way. I'll be happy to argue with you. And yeah, I mean, just it was so hard, but so like fun and rewarding to just talk through all the different factors
Yeah.
that go into this.
Yeah, and
Even going back and looking at like Nick Emenwari, that was just tough.
where did he land?
35. Because again, it's like he's right there, right behind Gray Zabel, right in front of Jahdae Barron, who's right in front of Mason Taylor. And it's like, how do you figure out for the Broncos where that fits? Because you really don't need safety.
No.
But at the same time, like he's more weapon than he is safety.
So-
like he's a 3rd down linebacker, probably. So,
Right. So last
lot of
question
conversations.
for you, Henry. With that, let's say the 49ers re-sign Talanoa Hufanga. Where's Nick Emenwari on this? Instead of being 35.
Yeah.
Is
Looking
he top
up
10?
So like Matthew Golden's at 9.
Yeah.
Travion Henderson's 10 now. I'd probably I don't I might have Starks ahead of him. As crazy as that sounds, just because I have fears that he's a tweener. But you probably do have him right around top 10.
Yeah. Man, and see, that's something you don't get with these
Yeah.
national boards
Yep.
because that's not changing. Nick Emenwari is going to be wherever he is, regardless of the Broncos need. That's what you get here. Shout out to you guys for putting all the hard work into this. It's awesome. It's over at thednvr.com. We're going to continue to break it down on the show, but if you want to get access to it, make sure to become a diehard and go to thednvr.com. Awesome show today. Shout out to Andre. Shout out to Henry. Shout out to Dion. And shout out to everyone tuning in with us. Hit us with a thumbs up on the way out. We'll see you tomorrow, 11 a.m. with special guest Benny Fowler. Collier. You're not going to want to miss it.
Let's
We'll see you
go.
then.